When I was a young knight, I did a terrible thing. It's been decades since I rode through the shade of the great oaks outside of Camelot. 3 decades has changed much, but no amount of time can erase the man I was. I was a baron's son, and never did I want for anything. Everything was provided for me in a timely fashion. In retrospect, I had everything I ever needed without ever leaving home. That wasn't enough for me. So I left for Camelot to become a knight. I was taught swordplay by Lancelot himself, and the code of chivalry I heard from King Arthur's mouth. Soon I was a knight of Camelot, and I felt unstoppable. It was on my way back from celebrating my knighthood that I saw a beautiful young maiden. I recognized her from the castle where I believed she worked in the kitchen. I approached her and I attempted to gain her favor, with less than flavorful flattery. She was polite but dismissive. This was not something I was used to. Growing up, all the household servants jumped at my word. Never would they have dared dismiss my wishes. So I assumed she must not have known who I was, let alone my place in the hierarchy of our world. So I proceeded, because it was ridiculous that she not understand something so absurdly fundamental. So I let her know that I was a highborn and a knighted one at that. She expressed that she understood that, but needed to get home. I was now perplexed and frustrated. So I made a decision that changed both of our worlds. I grabbed her and forced her to lay with me, the whole time reminding her that she was not in a position to tell me what to do or not to do, not with the blood in her veins. It was the next day when the royal guard appeared at my door and informed me that I had been summoned by the king. I was at first delighted at the prospect of an audience with my king, up until the guard shackled my arms. It was then that I realized this was no social call. But still I could not fathom what could have caused such strain on my relationship with the crown. When we arrived in the throne room, I first saw Arthur with a face of pure disgust. Second, I noticed the young maiden with a bruise on the side of her face being comforted by Queen Guinevere. Then it dawned on me that there was a problem with how I treated her. I looked back in eye-open horror, realizing I truly saw no error in her treatment. It is honestly the most disgusting part of my story. It was not until I saw repercussions staring me in the face that I felt regret. Arthur's first reaction when I entered was to strike me in the face. I fell to my knees as Arthur said,
I taught you the code, and I thought you had adopted it into yourself. I now see that you listened, but did not hear my words. For the shame your actions have brought my court, I condemn you to death.
I was so scared, not sure what to do, so I just didn't move, transfixed by the sheer terror that is the prospect of mortality, at the same time reflecting on my king's words, and first time understanding them. That just acting the part of a good knight does not mean you are a good man, which essentially broke down my entire worldview. During my internal revelations, Queen Guinevere had approached her husband with the proposition.
My lord, if you will permit it, I have an alternative to such simple punishment. We must make an example for men to follow, and this is the perfect opportunity. Too many men follow this man's philosophy of blood and status. It means right to do whatever they desire to win. Now, young man, I charge you to find the answer to a simple question. What is it that women truly want? If you can find the answer and deliver the answer in a year's time, you will keep your head. If not, we will let my husband have his way. You understand?
I understood quite well that I was getting a second chance at life. I did not ask any questions. I fled the first chance I had, still reeling at what happened to me. My thoughts drifting as much as I resisted, back to the young maiden from the kitchens, and how I didn't even know her name. It did not matter to me the night before, but something about the king's face jostled in me a capacity for guilt that I did not know I possessed. It wasn't just the king. It was seeing the young maiden in the light of day. The way she avoided my eyes. It made me feel like a monster. No, that's not quite right. It made me realize that I was a monster. I encountered many women on my travels and received many answers to the Queen's question. I realized that this is an issue in of itself. She asked me for one answer, not several. This meant that not all these women could be right. That all changed when I met a small old woman. She had no aesthetic value whatsoever, but my year was almost up and I was desperate. So I stopped to ask her the question. To my surprise, she informed me that she could help, but requested a favor in return. I asked what the nature of this favor would be, but her only remark was that it was a favor and I could not refuse. And like I said, I was very desperate at this point, so I took her at her word, and together we traveled back to Camelot. On the journey back to Camelot, we spoke on occasion. Mostly she asked me questions about my life. I relayed her my backstory, the story of the disgraced Baron's son. She listened quite calmly when I told her about the young maiden. But when I had finished, she asked me a question that I had not thought about since the day I left Camelot.
How do you feel about what happened now?
Without much thought, I responded, "Disgusted,"
Good.
she replied.
And how do you feel about the blood coursing through your veins?
It is part of me, but it is not the summation of me. I define myself through my actions, not my heritage,
Good.
was all she said. We arrived in Camelot on the promised day, and I felt more than a tad of trepidation. The streets were lined with onlookers, hoping to see an execution. As we rode up to the court, the old woman said softly,
I hope you're ready.
This left me very confused as I entered the throne room, but I was hoping as well. The Queen wasted no time. She immediately asked,
So what is it that all women want?
the old woman whispered in my ear, and it surprised me with its simplicity. Women desire the mastery over their love and their lives. This seemed to shock the Queen, but then she broke into a sad kind of smile. I looked her right in the eye, and I said, Whether or not this is the answer you desired, I am ready to take on repercussions of my horrendous action. The sad smile did not fade.
You've grown, I can see this. But you are right, your actions have marked you for life. All you can now do is live as an example to all men. You could never undo your sin, but I know, charge you to live your life repenting.
To this I replied, This I will do unfailingly. But first there is a favor I have promised a friend. I turned to the woman, who was smiling, a wide smile for the first time. I saw the vague reflection of beauty she once had. I asked her what I could do for her, knowing whatever it was I would oblige. She caught me off guard with a marriage proposal. I was at first very opposed, not wanting to waste my youth on someone so aged. But with my opposition, she gave me a choice.
I will either be beautiful and unfaithful, or ugly and faithful,
she said. I reflected on this and found my thoughts were not of an unrepentant man. I looked hard and long at the old woman before I remembered my lesson. I gave her a sad smile of my own, and I said, Up to you. And to this she gave me that wide smile and transformed into the woman I had seen in her just minutes before. A beauty that escapes definition. She fell into my arms, and that's when I realized how much I had learned and grown. And I was glad for it. This is not the end of the story. We went on to live our lives. We had 3 daughters who had each raised to know that they deserved respect. Not because of their blood or status, but because they were people, just like everyone else. Me and my wife, my girls, have been fighting for women's rights ever since that day in King Arthur's court. We're currently pushing for the vote on women's ability to own property, and it's looking good. I spent my life trying to repent for what I did, but I know I can never make up for it. This is why I can never forget the terrible thing I did when I was a young knight, under the shades of the oaks outside of Camelot.